Today, okay, hello guys, good afternoon. Today we're going to learn about the passive voice, the impersonal and personal structures. But before I'm explaining you the grammar structure, I'm going to tell you what's an impersonal and what is a personal structure talking about passive voice. Okay, first, a personal passive voice, it means that the object of the active sentence becomes the subject of the passive sentence. So, every verb that means an object, that means that if it's a transitive verb, can form a personal passive form. For example, if I say, they build horses, the passive form is horses are built. But verbs without an object, like the intransitive verbs, normally cannot form a personal passive sentence, as there is no object and can become the subject of the passive sentence. If you want to use an intransitive verb in passive voice, you need an impersonal construction. Therefore, this passive is called impersonal passive. For example, if I say, he says, my passive form is it is said. Impersonal passive voice is not as common as in English as in some other languages, for example, in German or Latin. In English, the impersonal passive is only possible with verbs of perception. For example, say, think, believe, consider, know, expect, report, and those kinds of verbs. Like this example, they say that women live longer than men. It is said that women live longer than men. Although the impersonal passive is possible here, personal passive is more common. For example, they say that women live longer than men. Women are said to live longer than men. The subject of the subordinate clause, women, goes to the beginning of the sentence. The verb of perception is put into passive voice. The rest of the sentence is adding using an infinitive construction with to. Certain auxiliary verb and that are dropped. Sometimes the term personal passive is used in English lessons if the indirect object of an active sentence is to become the subject of the passive sentence. Okay, now that we know this, we're going to continue with the grammar structure, the grammar construction for this personal or impersonal sentences. Okay, as I said you before, we often use the verbs like believe, consider, know, expect, say, report, suppose, and think in passive voice. They can be used in an impersonal or a personal passive structure. These structures are used to report an opinion in a more convincing and formal way. We form the impersonal passive structure using it, the passive form of the verb. Remember that when we say the passive verb is when we use the verb in past participle, that, and the rest of the sentence. This first example is in active voice. We say, people say that Susan will get the sales positions. In passive voice, as we said at the beginning, we start with it. Here is it. It. We add the verb be. It is said, the verb in past participle. What's the verb? Say, people say, subject, verb. So, I write my verb in past participle. It is said that, I add that, and the rest of the sentence. Susan will get the sales position. To make the impersonal passive structure, we use a noun, the verb in past participle, and a full infinitive. Remember that a full infinitive is the verb with the preposition to. This is my active sentence. People say that Susan is the best candidate. To make it passive, we start with a noun. What's my noun? Here is Susan. Why it is Susan? Because the sentence starts with people say that Susan. So people is my subject, verb, object. So as this is the object, is a noun. So we start with my noun. Susan, verb to be, said. And the rest of the sentence. The best candidate. Why is this sentence using to be, but this sentence says is? It says people say that Susan is the best candidate. But then here I have Susan is said to be the best candidate. Why? Because the structure says that we use a full infinitive. So the full infinitive, as I told you before, is a verb with the preposition to. Can we say to is? Of course no. Remember that the full infinitive is to be. This is in present, but the full infinitive form of the verb be is to be. So that's why we have Susan is said to be the best candidate. Okay, these impersonal and personal structures are pretty easy, and remember that we use them to sound more formal. Okay, let's continue with let, allow, and make. We use let, an object, and a verb infinitive, and also we can use allow, an object, and a full infinitive. There is a short difference. When we use let, we use a verb infinitive. When we use allow, we use a full infinitive to give permission for someone to do something. This is when we give permission, like let can only be used in the active voice. In passive voice, we can use the verb to be allowed to. Remember that we are still talking about the passive voice. So let, remember, let object and verb infinitive is in active. And allow can be used in passive voice, but when we do this, we use it like this, to be allowed to. Like this. My boss let me leave work early yesterday. And this is the passive form. This is the active, and this is the, well, these two sentences are active. My boss let me leave work early yesterday. My boss allowed me to leave work early yesterday. These two sentences are telling me that someone gave permission to this person, well, in this case, might be to me, to do this. What's this? To leave work early yesterday. But if we want to make it passive, we cannot say my boss let me leave. We remember that when we change to passive to active to passive, we have to use to be allowed to. So I say, as this is in past because it says yesterday, we use the verb to be in past. I was allowed to leave work early yesterday. So it's pretty easy. The only things that we have to do is to use this structure that says to be, but in this case we're talking about past, so we use was or were, allowed to, and also the verb of the sentence. In this case we don't use a verb in past participle in the case of the passive voice. Okay, And then we have the verb make. We use make plus an object plus a verb infinitive when we want to say that we force a person to do something in the active voice. In passive form, we use a full infinitive. So we say make object verb infinitive in active. In passive, we use make object full infinitive to say that we force to someone to do something. Like this. My friend made me apply for the job. That means that this wasn't my intention. Someone else forced me to do it. Maybe I did it by myself, but it wasn't what I wanted. Okay? So this is the active. To make it passive, I say, I was made to apply for the job by my friend. In active form, then I was made to apply for the job by my friend. This is in passive voice. Remember that we said that we have to use a full infinitive with the verb. So the verb here is apply, so I add to apply for the job. But who made me to do it? My friend, so I write the object by my friend. Okay, these structures are pretty easy. I hope you liked the video, and here ya next class. Bye.